Welcome, everyone. My name is Bashir Kareem, and I'm a youth services librarian with Arlington Public Library. Today, I'm super excited to present to you a very special virtual author talk. Our guest today is none other than Mr. Ben Guterson, the New York Times bestselling author of The World Famous Nine, and the new sequel, The Shadow of the World Famous Nine, which comes out next month. Mr. Guterson has also written several other books, including the Winterhouse trilogy, described by School Library Journal as a charming atmospheric mystery with some fantasy elements for fans of the mysterious Benedict Society. Another book to his credit is called The Einsteins of Vista Point, which is a Morse code-inspired mystery, described by Booklist as an adventure that begs to be read by flashlight under bed covers. All of these books I just mentioned are available in hardback here at Arlington Public Library, and the Winterhouse trilogy is also available in our e-audiobook collection in Libby. Now, before I turn things over to Mr. Guterson, I just want to say to the folks joining us online, if you'd like to ask questions throughout the program, feel free to submit them in the chat area. I'll be keeping an eye out for them. Also, for those of you who are viewing this in our Longfellow room here at the Westover Branch Library, please write your questions down on the mini whiteboards, which I've provided, and please bring them up to me at the podium for me to read. Finally, if you happen to be wondering where Mr. Guterson is joining us from today, I'm happy to tell you that he's joining us from just outside of Portland in the Pacific Northwest. All right, now without any further ado, I present to you Mr. Ben Guterson.
Well, thank you very much, Bashir, for such a nice introduction. It's great to be visiting virtually your library. We're on the opposite sides of the country here, so it's really fun to be with you. And looks like we've got a couple people maybe on video as well. Maybe it's a classroom or whatnot. And there's some people in the room there with you, I believe, at the library. So that's great. And I'll pause every once in a while to take some questions. Once I maybe display my full screen, I might not see the chat. So we can have people speak the questions, or you can relay them to me, or whatever works best, so we can make sure if people have questions, I can be sure to answer them. But the main thing is, thanks a lot for having me, and it's really fun to visit with you. I'll talk to you today about some of my books and other people's books, and share some stuff with you guys about codes and puzzles and word games. If you like all that kind of stuff, maybe you'll enjoy some of the things we'll talk about. And I'm going to test you guys a little bit as well as we go to see what your skills are like. Okay. Bashir, why don't I go ahead and share my presentation? So if everyone can give me just a moment while I get that up, because that'll be more interesting than me just sort of talking there. Let me click this. And can you see, let me go to full screen mode here.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my presentation now? You see everything there okay? Yeah,
Yep.
It looks all right? Okay,
Yep.
good. If something goes strange and it disappears or something, please let me know, but hopefully everything will be okay, all right? And remember, Bashir, I don't think I can see the chat pane, so if something comes up, feel free to let me know, okay?
Will do.
All right. So I'm going to jump right in here. About 7 years ago, I had a book out. It was called Winterhouse. And Winterhouse is the story of a girl named Elizabeth Summer. She's kind of a bookworm, and she gets a mysterious invitation to go to this hotel called Winterhouse, and it's really amazing there. And she meets the owner, and she makes a new friend, and they get involved in these adventures having to do with a strange coded message they see in a picture, and they get involved in all these dangerous situations. Then the second book in the trilogy was called The Secrets of Winterhouse, and Elizabeth comes back to Winterhouse. There's more characters. There's all these strange tunnels in the hotel and underneath it, and there's more danger for Elizabeth and her new friend named Freddie. And then the third and final book of the trilogy, The Winterhouse Mysteries, Elizabeth and her friend, they try to decode all these strange messages around the hotel and figure out what's in these puzzles and all these boxes of information. Anyway, without giving away too much, Winterhouse is this amazing place with a lot of strange things that have been going on in it over about 100+ years. And Elizabeth and her friend Freddie try to figure out just what's going on there. So that was, as Bashir mentioned, it's a trilogy, 3 books, and those came out just a few years ago, and people seem to enjoy them, especially around like Christmas time or winter time, because, you know, you can tell from the title, they're kind of wintry. So people seem to really get into them, especially, you know, December time of year. So after those books came out, a few years ago, I had a book out called The Einsteins of Vista Point. A little bit different from the Winterhouse books. It's about a boy and his family. They move out to the middle, kind of a nowhere, and there's this strange stone building on the edge of their property. And one day, the youngest boy in the family, his name is Zach, he looks out the door of his house at that stone tower on their property, and he sees a girl coming out of the forest walking towards that tower. And he's like, that's strange. What's going on there? And he goes and investigates, and all these strange things start to happen. But also, in the meantime, Zach and his brothers and sisters, they're exploring the forest and having fun, finding places to swim and all that. And then one night, they're sitting by that strange building, and they look across the river, and someone is flashing lights at them. And I think, Bashir, you mentioned something about Morse code as you were so kindly introducing me. And the kids start to wonder if maybe someone is sending them a Morse code message from across the river. So, and there's a whole bunch of strange things that happen after that. So those are the books that I've written in the past. Last year, I had a book out called The World Famous Nine. And The World Famous Nine is about a boy, and there he is there on the cover. His name is Xander, and he makes friends with a girl named Natasha. And Xander goes to this department store. It's called the Number 9 Plaza. And because it's the biggest store in the whole world, it's called the World Famous Nine. Everyone calls it just the Nine is its nickname. And there's everything in the world in this store. And there's kind of an illustration of just a few of like the dozens and dozens of departments or little mini stores in this huge department store. A department store is kind of like an old-fashioned shopping mall. I bet all you have been to malls before and all that. Department stores used to be around before there were malls. A department store is kind of like one building that's really tall, rather than a mall, which tends to be kind of flat and long. You know what I mean? So anyway, Xander goes to this department store, the World Famous Nine. He makes his friend named Natasha. She lives nearby, and there's a missing object there. It's been missing for decades, and it might show back up during the time Xander is there at the Nine. His grandmother runs the store, so he's actually living at the top of this tall building while he's visiting his grandmother. And all these strange things start to happen while he's there, and he and Natasha have to figure things out. That book came out last year, and then in about 5 weeks from now, in the middle of May, the sequel to the World Famous Nine will be coming out, and it's called The Shadow of the World Famous Nine. And what happens is, even though Xander and Natasha thought they figured some things out in the first book and solved some problems, there's a few things that they didn't totally get rid of. There's one bad guy. You can kind of see him there in that picture. He's kind of casting a sinister shadow over the store. So Xander and Natasha, they have to go back and, you know, use all their skills of clues and deciphering things and pictures and codes and looking through all kinds of old stuff and old documents just to find out what's going on in the store so they can make sure that they keep it entirely safe. So those are, that book will be coming out next month. Then next year, I'll have another book coming out, and then I hope more books after that. So that's just kind of a taste of the books that I've had come out. Bashir, why don't I pause for just a moment? I've got a whole lot of stuff I want to share with you guys.
Okay.
But before I get too far into it, I just thought maybe I would take a break for a moment. And if there's maybe 1 or 2 questions, I can take them, and I'll take more later. Any questions for me?
Okay, let's see. Raise your hand if you have a question. People, okay. All right. So, you want to bring your question up? Huh? All right, bring your questions up. Here we go. All right, 1, 2. All right, these are all right, in-person questions. All right. So, first question. Who drew the covers of your books?
So who drew the covers? Hold on here. I have a little issue here. Let me see something here. Okay. So the 3 Winterhouse books and the 2 9 books, the covers were all done by a woman named Chloe Bristol. She's great. She's a really talented artist. She's worked for different movie studios. She worked on the TV show and the movie SpongeBob. I bet everyone's heard that. There was a Mary Poppins movie that came out about 3 years ago. She did a bunch of the cartoon or graphic stuff for that. She does all kinds of stuff for TV shows and movies. Also, in the Winterhouse books, there's a whole bunch of illustrations inside the book, and Chloe did all of those. Although she did the covers for the world famous 9 books, she didn't do the interior illustrations. A different artist did. And a different artist altogether did the cover and the inside for the Einsteins of Vista Point. So in short, Chloe's done 5 of my covers of 6 of my books and done inside for 3 of my books. So yeah, she's great. They're all great. It's fun to work with these artists. Another question or any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple more. Here we go. How do you get your book story ideas?
Okay, my ideas, like my inspiration and all that. So I have a slide that I'll show you guys in a few minutes, and it'll be more interesting if I answer that question while I'm showing the slide. Okay, so, and if I don't answer it, let me know, but I think I'll answer that. I think I'll be able to best address that question in a few minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Let's take one more question right now.
One more question. Okay, here we go. How do you overcome writer's block?
That's a serious affliction that hits a lot of writers. Writer's block, for those of you who may not know that term, it just means, what if you're sitting down to write and like it's just not happening? Like the creative flow isn't there, and you're sitting down and you just feel like you're blocked. That's why they call it writer's block. So everyone has a different way of getting past that. I'll tell you 2 things that I do. One is I spend a lot of time creating an outline or like a roadmap for my story. So I always kind of know where I'm going. Just like it's like when you get in the car to take a trip, you look at your GPS or your map on your phone or something like that, so you know where you're going. So even if you stop somewhere, you don't really feel like you're lost because you know where you're going. So when I create an outline for my story, it helps me because I know where I'm going and I can kind of fight through, even if I don't feel quite as creative on a particular day. Another thing that I do sometimes is when I sit down to write, maybe it's like for an hour or 2 or 3, if I'm really in the flow, sometimes I will deliberately stop, even if I'm in the middle really of a good role, because I feel like the next day when I sit down, I'll remember right where I was and I can pick right back up on that. So I sometimes don't let myself go right to the end of like a thought or something, because I know where it's going. And I know that if I sit down tomorrow, it will just like pull me right back in and I can just keep going. So those are 2 ways that I kind of create strategies to preempt getting into writer's block. Once you're there, I admit it's kind of hard, you got to kind of, and I would say I try to do everything I can to make sure that I don't bump up against writer's block. Okay. All right. So Bashir, I think I'll press on and we'll take more questions just in a few minutes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So any of you guys like to draw? I bet some hands are going up or some heads are nodding. Yeah.
Yeah. Like more than half the room.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier about Chloe and the artists, all that for the books, but I'll tell you something interesting. About 3 or 4 years ago, I really got into drawing, and you see those 4 pictures there? I did all of those by hand, not on the computer. I did them. I'll show you how I did them in a minute. They're called mandalas. And I learned about these in a book, like these geometric circles. And I just thought those are so cool. Like, how do you do those? And my editor at my book company, who's like the person who kind of like gets the book from my brain or whatever into being a real book, she saw I posted some of these online. She said, those look really nice. we should figure out a way to get them into the world famous 9. So if any of you happen to read the book, you'll see those. You know how a lot of books, they have a chapter heading, and then above it, there might be a little picture. So my mandalas are the little picture above each chapter title throughout the books. I never imagined I would have my own artwork in books. So real quickly, I'll show you how I do these. I take a compass, you know what I mean? It looks like that, not a direction thing. I draw circles, then I take a protractor and a ruler and I draw some lines. I'll just mark off the angles on there. And then I just take a black marker and I just start letting my imagination kind of go wherever it wants. I fill in the lines. I use more pens. I use my pencil to draw kind of ideas. I use the black marker more and more, and I just get more and more detailed. Just again, letting my imagination just kind of run wild and play around with designs. I erase stuff with an eraser, do stuff with a pencil, and slowly use the black marker just to fill everything in. And eventually it turns into that. I don't really consider myself any kind of like real artist, but I really got into doing these. And I don't do them on the computer. As you can see, I just do them with simple little things and a pencil and a marker. And I think they're pretty cool. They're really fun to do. They like, if you like to do coloring books or you like to do mazes or concentrate on stuff or doodle, you could really get into doing mandalas. They're a lot of fun. And like out of nowhere, suddenly they ended up in my books. So that was kind of fun. So I wanted to show you guys that. So let me change tracks a little bit. I don't know how old the different kids or people watching might be, but when I was in about 4th or 5th grade, these were some of my favorite books. Maybe some of you guys are that age, or maybe you're a little bit older. I'm not really sure. But anyway, I bet you're familiar with some of these. I loved a book called James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. He also wrote a book called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I bet probably all of you have heard of that book because there's been movies. And then there was Wonka, came out like a year or two ago. And Roald Dahl, he also wrote like The Fantastic Mr. Fox, Matilda, the BFG, like all these really fun books. And I really loved him. He was writing books even when I was a kid, and I used to love his stories. I also loved one I bet a lot of you have read or heard about called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's part of what's called the Chronicles of Narnia. And I loved this story. Near the beginning, the youngest girl, her name is Lucy, she goes into a wardrobe. And when I was a kid, I didn't even know what a wardrobe was. And then I realized or figured out it's like a stand-up closet kind of. She goes into it and goes through all these clothes, and then she emerges into this snowy other world called Narnia. And I thought, wow, that is really cool. I loved another book called The Phantom Toll Booth. It's about a boy who goes into a whole other dimension and has all these adventures. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher read us that book called The House with a Clock in Its Walls. And I just loved it. It has all this magic in it and all this danger. And I just thought it was the coolest story. Maybe some of you have had a teacher before who reads you a chapter from a book, like to start class off. My teacher in 5th grade did that for us. And then every day she'd stop reading the book and I was like, what's going to happen next? I just wanted to know what would happen. These are some classics that I've read over the years. I bet some of you have heard of these or read them. Tom Sawyer and Anna Green Gables. I love all these old books. Okay, so these are a lot of stories I read when I was a kid. But more recently, I've read some of these books. Bashir, I think you mentioned the Mysterious Benedict Society at the outset. That's a really good series. If you haven't read it yet, I really recommend it. Book Scavenger is another series. It's a trilogy. It's really fun. I recommend that one. People hide books all around the country, and then people look up the clues online for where to find them. It's really cool. I bet lots of you have read the Amulet graphic novel series. It's really popular, and I feel really lucky to have become good friends with the author, Kazu Kibuishi. He's a great guy. He used to live near me up here in the Northwest. If you happen to like my Winterhouse books, you would love a series called York. There's lots of clues, puzzles, and strange things in there. And if you like the Harry Potter books, I bet there's a lot of Harry Potter fans right now out there. There's a series called Nevermore. I think the 4th book is coming out later this year. and it is fantastic. And it's kind of like the Harry Potter books. If you like those ones, you would love the Nevermore books. A book I just love is called The Thief Lord. It's by a German writer named Cornelia Funk. She also wrote like Inkheart and Ink Spell. Maybe some of you would know those stories. Anyway, I won't go over all the books here because I've already put up like 20 of them or something, but they're all great books. I've read all of them. I've loved all of them, and I think you guys would as well. And Bashir, as a librarian, I bet you're familiar with a lot of these books, or maybe you've even read all of them. I think they're all great. I love these books. So just some recommendations. They've all come out, I think, over the last 15 years or maybe a little bit more, but they're all pretty recent, and they're all really good books. Okay, I'm going to go to something. Well, I'm going to show you a few other things in a moment, but maybe we could take another question or two right now while we have time.
All right, let me see here.
If there are any.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, here we go. All right. Okay. Was it difficult to get published, and what was it like?
It is difficult, it's hard to write a book, a book that people would like to read. It's a really hard thing to do. At least it's hard for me. I think it's difficult for just about anyone. It's definitely difficult for me. I'll explain a little bit about how it came about in just a moment on a slide or two. But essentially, I worked on Winterhouse, the first book, for a long time, and like for years. And then I got online and I searched for an agent, because I heard you need to have an agent to like connect you with a book company. And I didn't know anything about that. So I found an agent, and then the agent helped me. And she basically sold my book, Winterhouse, to a really good book company. And in fact, the book company liked Winterhouse. So they said, we like that book. Can you turn it into a trilogy? And I said, I'll give it my best shot. So I did. And so there's a whole business part of things. I don't really know a lot about that, but having the agent really helped me a lot, because it's hard. I don't know how I would have done it on my own. I don't know anything about that, actually, but it's hard. You just keep working and make the best story you can. Maybe we'll take one more question, and then I'll show you a couple of things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. How long does it take to write a book for you?
Winterhouse, I worked on Winterhouse over 6 years because I had a full-time job. I'll show you that in a moment as well. I had a full-time job, so I couldn't write more than about an hour a day. Now, though, I've been a full-time writer for about 9 years now. So now I can kind of work on a book and write it over maybe like anywhere from 8 months to 12 months, depending on sort of how things go. Like I write a draft, I set it aside, come back to it after a month, after you kind of have to wait, and look at it with fresh eyes. So it doesn't take me nearly as long as it took me to write that first book, but still takes a long time. You can't just knock it out in a week or two. At least I can't. It takes a while. Yeah. I definitely will take plenty more questions, but let me move on. I'll show you a couple interesting things here. So all those books there and everything I've been talking about, I think you guys get the picture. I'm a bookworm. Bashir, I bet you're a bookworm. Cindy, I don't know who you are there. You look like perhaps you're a teacher. Perhaps you are a book.
Cindy is my colleague here at Arlington Public Library. She also.
Okay, it looked like a classroom there, but yeah, a library room looks like one as well. So I'm going to just take a wild guess that we're all what you would call bookworms. So a few years ago, I mean, I've used that term my whole life, and I bet any of you listening right now, you probably have heard that term as well, bookworm. And I never really thought about it. But when you step back and you consider, it's kind of strange. Like, why would we call someone who loves to read a bookworm? I never really thought about it until a few years ago. Well, here's what I learned. Sometimes in old libraries with old books in them, there are these little bugs that are kind of long and look like worms, and they get into the books and they start eating them. For them, it's like their food. So just like they devour books, someone who loves to read kind of devours the book mentally. So that's where the term bookworm came from. I want to show you something though. A few years ago, I went to Portugal, beautiful country in Europe, and I went to a city called Mafra in Portugal. And in Mafra, there's a huge palace. Can you guys see that picture there, that huge palace? It's enormous. It has over 1,000 rooms in it. And the largest room in the palace is the library. The library in Mafra, in the palace there, is over 100 yards long, longer than a football field. There's a picture of me in the library. The problem is, in this old library in Mafra, they had these worms, and they would get into the books and they would eat them. Now, Cindy and Bashir, I'm sure you can appreciate that would be a major problem if you had a bunch of bugs eating your books up. So the librarians at this library got together and they came up with a solution. What they did was they brought in a bunch of bats to live in the library. And it's kind of strange, but there's a display of some dead bats that they keep in that library. But there's a whole bunch of living bats there. During the day, they sleep behind the books on the shelf. Then at night, they start to wake up and they use what's called echolocation. You guys have probably heard of that. And they swoop down. If a bug is coming in or out of a book, they eat it up. And that way it prevents these little worms, these little bugs, from destroying the books in that old library. The books are like 300 or 400 years old. So that's how that library controls the bookworm population in that library. At night, they put down canvas tarps over the floors and all the tables. So, because as bats are flying around, they're little droppings, right? And you don't want there to be a mess everywhere. But they really do use that. They use the bats to control the bug problem in their library. You can look it up. There's videos on YouTube and all that. It's really interesting. There's actually another library also in Portugal that does the same thing. So it's kind of fascinating. At least I think it is. I think it's kind of funny. Some people have asked me, have I always been a writer? And the answer is no. I used to be a school teacher, actually. And when I got out of college, I went to the University of Washington in Seattle. And after I got out of college, I became a teacher down in New Mexico on what was then called the Navajo Reservation. Now I think it's more common to call it the Navajo Nation. And there's a picture of me with a club I had, and I'm kneeling in front there and had more hair on my head at the time. But it was a really great experience. I taught there for 7 years. I taught for a small school in Colorado for 3 years. And I really loved being a teacher. After I did that for 10 years, I actually then returned to my hometown of Seattle, and I got a job at a huge company called Microsoft. And I worked there for many years. And there I am about a dozen or so years ago, giving a talk at Microsoft. But as I mentioned, I'm a bookworm. I love to read. And so every night after I was done working at Microsoft, I would come home and I would write for an hour in the evening, because I thought, I love to read books so much. It would be really fun to try to write a book. So I wrote and wrote and wrote every night. I tried to write books for adults, but I couldn't quite figure out what I was doing. And then one day, my youngest daughter, she's now 30 years old, but when she was about 8 or 9, those pictures, by the way, that's near my house, the house I lived in near Seattle for many years. We lived way out in the foothills, Bashir, as I was telling you earlier, the mountains. And that little lake there is about 2 or 3 blocks from the house I used to own. And that's what it looks like in summer. And the other picture is for what the area looks like in winter. One day, my daughter was 8 or 9. She said, "Dad, let's go to that lake, take our notebooks with us, and let's write stories and draw pictures." And I said, "Okay, sounds fun." So we went there, and sitting beside that lake in a little notebook, I drew a picture of some mountains, and I put a little hotel in there, and I turned the paper over. And on the back of the paper, I started writing a story about a place called Winterhouse, just came to my mind, about a girl who goes to Winterhouse. And the girl was kind of like my daughter. I wrote 3 paragraphs and I read them to her. And she said, "I really like how that story is starting off. You should try to write the whole thing." So I started doing that over the next few years. I thought, well, I'll try to write a book for kids. I worked on it, like I said, for about 6 years. And then finally, like I was telling you guys earlier, it turned into a real book. So we had that question earlier about my inspiration for writing my books. I was inspired to write a kid's book called Winterhouse because of that location and because my daughter kind of prodded me and then encouraged me to keep going with the story. That's where the idea came from and the inspiration came from. That's where the Winterhouse came from. For the Einsteins of Vista Point, my inspiration came from that spot that I'm showing you right there. In Oregon, above the Columbia River, not far from where I'm living now, there's a beautiful stone tower. It's on the Oregon side of the Columbia River. You guys see the water there, of course, that's the Columbia River. On the other side there is Washington State. So there's Oregon and there's Washington. And I went to that building once years ago in wintertime, and I thought, wow, this place is so cool. I'd love to write a story with this being the location. So that's where my inspiration came for writing the Einsteins of Vista Point. And then for the world famous 9 books, when I was a kid in Seattle, there were 2 huge department stores. One was called Frederick and Nelson. The other was called the Bon Marché. And there's the pictures of them right there. And my mom and dad used to take me and my brothers and sisters there, especially around Christmas time when they were all decorated and looked all, beautiful and magical and everything. And those memories are really great for me. And I just thought, wow, it'd be really fun to write a story set in a huge department store like those ones I used to love when I was a kid. So I hope I've answered that question that came up earlier. That's where my inspiration for my stories have come from. Places I've been to and started thinking like, wow, I'd love to have those be the locations for my stories. That's been a huge inspiration for me. All right, I'm going to move on to something completely different in just a moment. So let's take any more questions if we can. And I'm keeping my eye on the clock. I think we're doing okay on time.
Okay, good stuff. You ready for one more?
Uh-huh.
Okay, here we go. How many books have you started writing without finishing?
Oh boy. I have started writing and even finished about 5 or 6 other books for adults, but I've never quite figured out how to make them work. So they've never been published,
Yeah.
But I have other books that I'm sort of working on and in the middle of. I don't know how other writers are, but for me, I'm kind of always working on 2 or 3 things at any given time. So like I have 2 or 3 other books that I'm kind of working on right now. So I guess you could say they're not really done. But hopefully they'll be published someday, but I don't really know if they will. I work on stories as well, and it's kind of all over the place. With a fun thing, one of the many fun things about being a writer is you have a lot of ideas, and some of them are good, some of them are not so good. You think about which ones are better to spend your time on, and then you can just sit down on a laptop or your notebook and just start working on a story. So I have a lot of ideas, and we'll see how many more turn into actual books. Another question?
Yeah, let's see here. Is the Morse code scene with the flashlight inspired by the scene in the Benedict Society?
No. To be honest with you, I don't recall that in the Mysterious Benedict Society, but I think I've just read the first 2. If there was Morse code in it, then I've completely forgotten about it. I'll tell you, I actually was inspired by a Morse code thing that I read about in an old series called Swallows and Amazons. And that's from a long time ago. And I love that series. And in one of those, there's, I think, 12 or 13 books. And in one of those books, the kids see someone flashing lights to them. It's probably, Morse code's probably shown up in tons of books. But as much as I love the Mysterious Benedict Society books, I have to confess I haven't read all of them. And if it was in the 2 that I read, I completely forgotten. So, but it's fun. Morse code is fun. Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah, let's see here. I think you touched on this. Are any of your characters based on someone you know in real life whether it be their looks or personality. I think you said Elizabeth is based on your daughter, right?
Yeah, Elizabeth in the Winterhouse books, she's a real bookworm, and my daughter was and is a real bookworm. But Elizabeth is not like just like my daughter 100%. She's very different. So to answer that question, I'll say the answer is yes. I have sort of based characters or taken traits from people in my real life and sort of given them to my characters, but there's never been a character where it's like totally just someone I know, or even more than 50%. It's more just like there's elements of people, that are in my books, or there's something the way a person looks, or some character trait that they have, or a habit, or a way of speaking, or something like that, I think might be interesting. And I kind of import that, and use it in the story. So I kind of steal from people a little bit, but I don't just implant them in my story 100%. Let's take maybe one more question for now, and then I'll show you guys something different.
Okay. All right. Anybody want to submit a question? All right. You did? Okay. All right. Thank you. Are you concerned about AI taking writers' jobs? And yeah, so we'll stick with that one.
Yeah, I'll say yes, but I'll explain this. I do think there are a lot of things, a lot of jobs, or that entail some kind of writing skill, that AI probably will be able to do it in place of them. Now, maybe I'm about to just flatter myself or other writers here with what I'm about to say, but I am really convinced that when it comes to creative work, like putting a story together, an imaginative piece of literature, I don't think AI would be able to create something like that, because like there's too many things that come to my mind, and I think other writers' minds, that are so random and so unpredictable and incapable of being predicted by any kind of algorithm or program, that I just don't think AI could ever kind of create something to that level. Again, I don't really want to sound like I'm flattering myself or other writers. I just think generally any group of people who are really creative, whether it's a great singer or a great, movie director, or a great actor, or a great writer, I just think there's limits on what AI would be able to do. And I don't think that they can really reach or encroach on that level of creativity, to that degree. I do think AI would be able, and probably already can, like write books that people could read, but I don't think that would be the kinds of books that would be like really great, or like people would say 100 years from now, oh yeah, back in 2025, AI wrote the greatest work of literature ever. I mean, I just don't think that that's going to happen. So I do think AI will take over some writing functions, but I do think there's a layer of creative literature that AI won't be able to touch. Maybe I'll be proved wrong in the future, but that's my belief right now. I hope. Let's hope.
Yeah, we all hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I say Cindy raising crossed fingers there. So, okay, let me, we can definitely take more questions, but I want in a few, but I want to show you something different. Okay. And maybe everyone in the room there will find this fun. I hope. Stop sign.
Okay.
When I was a kid and I would be in the car with my parents, they would, of course, stop at every stop sign. And I would look at the stop signs, and my mind would start to play around with those four letters, STOP. And I realized there are 5 other 4-letter words you can create with those 4 letters just by rearranging them. Now, do you guys know what those 5 other 4-letter words are? You can talk about it, shout it out, whatever you want to do, or just think it in your head. But there are 5 other 4-letter words. None of them are the word stop, by the way. They're totally different. You can't repeat any letters either.
All right, so I think they're giving it a go. You guys have whiteboards. You have your whiteboards. Write your answers down on your whiteboards. If you think you said it was 5 words, Mr. Guterson?
5 4-letter words.
5 4-letter words. First person to submit 5 4-letter words, please bring it up. With all those letters.
And you can't repeat the word stop. That's already done. They're different than the word stop. Let's see if somebody even has 4 of them, Bashir, just in the interest
Okay,
of time.
who's
maybe they
got
can bring 'em.
4? You got 4? Okay, bring them up. All right. Someone has 5? Okay, here we go. Thank you, Henry.
5. Wow. All right.
Hey. Okay. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay. Henry, is look one of them? Okay. Do you see a K in there? You got to rearrange
You have to
them.
rearrange those 4
Okay.
letters.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here we go. I got one. You have 5? We have 4. Okay, you have 5. Okay, here we go. First one is tops, pots, post, spot, and ops.
That
OPTS.
person got the 5 words.
Hey,
Wow.
good one. Great
Yeah.
job. Great
Well
job.
done. Yeah,
Who was
that
that? Who
last
was
one,
that?
ops, is the
What's
one
her
that a
name?
lot of people don't get. That's a
Sayori?
tough one.
Sayori got it. Sayori got it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Bashir, you need to give them an extra bag of potato chips there. in
Extra
that
bag of potato chips for Sayori.
So, okay. Now, why in the world am I showing you this? Okay. A few things. Again, I used to do this when I was a kid, and I do it to this day. I'm always rearranging letters in my head. I used to love, and I still love, a lot of word games. Maybe some of you like to play that game Hangman. I bet you know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
Or I used to play Scrabble with my mom when I was a kid all the time. I love playing around with words. And when you think about it, that's what writers do. They like to play around with words. Poets do the same thing. You know, song lyrics, rap lyrics, whatever it is, you're just playing around with words all the time. And in my books, I like to do a lot of these. They're what are called anagrams. When you rearrange the letters of a word or words to create new ones. They're really fun. So I got online and I found some fun anagrams. You can rearrange the word listen to create the word silent. You can rearrange astronomers to create moon starers. Conversation turns into voices rant on. The countryside becomes no city dust here. Vacation time is I am not active. And my personal favorite, you can rearrange a decimal point into I'm a dot in place. So I found all those online. I think they're a lot of fun. I went to an anagram site and I put in my last name, which is Guterson. It has 8 letters in it. And I pushed the button to see what anagrams I would come up with. And here's what I got on the anagram site. Guterson turns into rug notes. It turns into true song, sour gent, so urgent, but there's only one 8-letter word in the entire English language that Guterson, my last name, can transform into. It is the name of a fish, sturgeon, and that's what a sturgeon looks like. So if you want to have fun, go to an anagram site, put in your last name or the name of a friend, and press the submit button and see what you get. Okay, so Bashir, we're going to give this a try with the folks in the room there. How about the word east? Can you come up with other, can you rearrange those letters into other 4-letter words?
All right, here we go, guys. Is there a particular number that they should be shooting for?
No, but if anyone gets like even 3, that would be pretty good, I think.
Okay, all right.
And in the interest of time, if they want to just, you know, yell it to you or something, because I've got a few of these and I want to have enough time for everything.
Okay. Anybody got 2, 3? They're working on it. They're working on. Okay, come. Here we go. That's okay. It's all fun. All right, here we go. I have eats, EATS, sate, SATE,
Good.
and tase, TASE.
Okay. Maybe, I don't know. Is it? I might have to add that one if it's a real word.
Okay.
Hey, someone. Okay. Here's what I got. I got
just saw the
seat,
really cool
tease,
over.
eats, and sate. Those are the four I
Okay,
got.
I think.
There's
Tease?
8.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I don't want you guys getting the camera. I don't want you getting the camera. Okay.
Okay,
Oh, I have. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have someone submitted eats, seat, sate, tease, and what's the last one? Tase.
okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. That's interesting.
Okay.
All right, let's try another 4-letter one. This one's so easy. This
Okay,
one,
multiple
this
words?
one's easier, so they can shout this one out. There's 3 from Star. What are they?
Say it again. You want them to do star?
I'm not cheating.
You want them
This
to do
one they
star?
can shout out.
Okay, just shout it out. Okay. So anyone have anagram for star? Heart. Arts. ARTS. Rats. Henry said rats. Cars. TARS.
Yeah, that's it. You got him. You got him.
Oh, good job, guys.
All right, let's try a harder one. Let's try a 5-letter word. Five letter.
5 letters. Henry said meats.
Yeah. What else?
Teams. Who
Yes.
said teams? Mates.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think there's 1 or 2 more. There's one more. Tames, meets, mates, and teams. These
Stem.
guys are good, Bashir.
A stem. 2 words.
Okay. All right, let's try this one. This is a harder one. This is a harder one. How about this one? Notes, 5-letter words. Yeah.
What we
There's
got, guys?
there's
Stones?
3. There's a really hard one. I heard stone and tones, but there's an even harder one.
Onset.
Very good. That's
Oh,
the
he
hard
might-
one. Okay, last one. Last one, Bashir.
Okay, last one, guys. Steel and stale.
Yes.
Slate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Well, what did you say? Say it again.
Oh yeah, tails.
Tails.
Yeah, those are the 4 that I had.
Whoa!
So-
Great job. Give yourselves a round of applause.
So someone once said teals, like the plural, the word teal. And
think
some of you
so.
might notice, although it's a proper noun, so we can't use it, you would find a Tesla in there, but we won't talk about it. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's keep going on here. So you guys got the idea here on anagrams. I use them in the second Winterhouse, Bashir, in the title and the headings for the chapters. I won't explain it, but they're there. All right. Do you guys know what word ladders are?
Word ladders.
A word ladder is when you try to change one word into another word. You can only change one letter at a time. It's hard to explain, so let me show you an
Oh,
example.
wow. Okay. All right.
Okay.
He's going to show
All
us,
right.
guys.
Look at this. You can change cat to dog by changing cat into cot. Do you see how I only changed one letter? And then I can change cot to dot and dot to dog. Do you see I only
Oh,
changed
very
one letter
cool.
each time? You get it?
Yeah. Very
See how that
nice.
works?
You guys see how that works? Okay. They're ready.
Okay. All
They
right.
said give them one.
Can you guys change cold to warm?
All right. You got your whiteboards? Let's do it.
There's Bashir, there's about 3 or 4 ways to do this. I can only
Oh,
show
wow.
you one
Okay.
on my slide, but there may be other ways people in the room will do these. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay, here we go. Jenny. Ashley. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Ashley has, here we go. Cold, cord, CORD,
Yeah,
card,
I did it too.
board,
That's
WARD,
it.
and one.
Look.
Oh my goodness. Perfect score, Ashley.
Wow,
Great
that's a-
job. Hey.
There, I will say, like I said, Bashir, there's at least 2 other ways to do this, but whoever just did that one, they did it the exact same way I did mine.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Congrats.
Yes.
That person gets an
Nicely
extra,
done. That was
Gets extra
Ashley. Was that
soda, I
Ashley?
think.
Ashley wants extra chips now.
Okay. All right. Look, we're just going to do one more.
Okay, one more, you guys.
This one's very famous. It's very hard. Can you change head to tail?
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Head to tails, guys.
Bashir, everyone has their own little like surface or device.
Yeah, I'll show you what they have.
Okay.
So all the kids are equipped with these, a little whiteboard and a marker.
Okay. The way
yeah.
the screen, oh yeah, move it a little closer because it does.
Oh,
it
okay,
kinda
I'm
breaks
sorry.
up.
Can you see that?
Maybe back it up. It kind of
Okay, back it up.
A little bit more. Back up just a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. Now I see.
You
I
got
see.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
A little handheld, a little handheld.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone want to try this one?
All right, anybody got it?
You know the answer.
Okay, they're still working on it.
Oh, this is
Ashley's
hard.
thinking hard.
Yeah. Again,
Okay.
there's 3 or 4 ways to do this one.
Mr. Guterson
As they're
said
working,
3 or
I'll
4
say
ways to do it.
this one is actually a very famous one. I'll explain why in just a moment.
Okay. All right. Looks like Zoe's got just one more to go.
Mhm.
Don't give up, Zoe.
That's right.
Yes, is TEIL a word?
TEIL?
Yeah.
No.
No.
But if that person is at that point, there is a word that I just thinking through what would have come before that. I think they're close. Here, all right. Can I start showing? Or
Can
wait.
he show? Can he show you guys? We got one. Do we have one? Do we? Okay, here we go. All right, we have an answer. Here we go. We have a submission.
Yeah.
All right, what's your name? All right, Max. Max starts with head, of course, then heel, HEAL,
Yeah.
then HEIL.
Okay.
Not
I
sure
don't
the
have that.
word. Huh?
I don't
No?
have that.
Okay. Then he goes on to male, MAIL, and then is that hail? Hail, HAIL.
Okay.
And then tail. That's how Max arrived at it.
Okay, interesting. I didn't have that
It's
one.
respectable. It's respectable. Good
Yeah.
job. Good try. They say
Should I show you mine?
Don't show it.
Okay.
Max, good try. Good try, Max.
Should I?
Okay, you got we have to get, there's more to the program, guys.
Yeah, I want to
Okay.
show you 1 or 2 more things after this. Here, I'll show you the next word.
Okay, all
I'll show you
right.
the next-
Ashley's back. Ashley's back. Our reigning champion. Ashley has heel, HEAL, here, HEAR.
Oh,
Hair, I'm sorry, air, HEIR.
oh,
Then hair, HAIR. Then hail, HAIL. And then tail, TAIL.
okay. I think that's a way of doing it. It's not the way I did it, but I think that works from what
That's
I heard.
the way? All
Yeah.
right. We have another one. One more. We have head, heel, HEAL, teal,
Yeah,
tell, TELL,
yeah,
and then tall,
yeah. That's mine.
ALL, and then tail, TAIL.
That's how I did it.
That's
Yeah.
how he did it. That's how he did it. What's your name? Kami. And Ashley, nicely done, you guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the way I did it. I think 1 or 2 of those others I heard probably work as well.
Yeah.
So word ladders were invented by Lewis Carroll, who wrote the
Okay.
Alice in Wonderland books. And he also came up with these, he called them doublets, but we call them word ladders. And he wrote a whole book about them. And the first example he used in the book was the one I just showed you. So that's why it's kind of famous, kind of well known. I use word ladders in my first Winterhouse book. Every chapter title has a word ladder built into it. So it's kind of an extra puzzle in the Winterhouse books. Okay. Let me show you one last puzzle. I think we may be out of time then because I want to take more questions. Oh, by the way, I'm showing you guys this because in my books, the kids solve a lot of clues by anagrams, word ladders, and a bunch of other Morse code and all kinds of clues and codes that I don't have time to show you all of them. So I like to build those into my stories. Do you guys know what palindromes are? A lot of times people will say taco cat, because if you say taco cat backwards, it still says taco cat, or race car backwards is still race car. Palindrome is a word or words that are the same backwards or forwards. Do you see how all those words are the same if you read them backwards?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Then let's try a full sentence. How about this one? Step on no pets. Now start at the period and read right to left. And it still says step on no pets. Do you see that?
That's incredible.
Now here's another one. Rats live on no evil star. Read it backwards from the period. Rats live on no evil star. And in my books, in the third Winterhouse in particular, there are a lot of palindromes that I use. All right, let's get a little more complicated. How about this? A dog, a panic in a pagoda. Read it backwards. It still says a dog, a panic in a pagoda, if you read it. See what I mean?
Wow.
How about this one? Mr. Owl ate my metal worm. Here's my favorite of all. Go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog. And if you read it backwards, it says, go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog.
That's incredible.
And here's the longest one I could fit on here. I saw desserts. I'd no lemons. Alas, no melon. Distressed was I. And if you read it backwards, it's now full disclosure, I found all of these online. I did not make these up, but I'll tell you, if you go online and type in palindromes, you will find the most incredible stuff on there. People have written like whole papers on, and they're all backwards. It is amazing the stuff you will find there. Bashir, I have other codes and puzzles I could show, but I know we're about out of time, and I want to be sure if there's one or two more questions I can answer those. So why don't I stop sharing? Thanks, you guys. I hope that was fun to see all the different puzzles and all that. And if you like that, as I say, in my books, I have all kinds of puzzles and games and codes and all that kind of stuff in there. So I'm going to stop sharing, Bashir, and I'll take any more questions that we might have. Okay.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Raise your hand if you have a question, if you have it on the board, or if not, you want to just pose your question. I'll have you talking to the microphone. Okay. Off camera.
How much money do you usually make?
Oh, great.
Well, and maybe in a good year, I'll make as much as Bashir. I'll put it, the thing is, it's a really, really hard question to answer. Because, unlike someone who has sort of like a standard job where you have a boss and you get a paycheck every 2 weeks or every month or something, writing doesn't work that way. You get paid when you complete a book, and then depending on how many books are sold. So I'm not trying to avoid the question, but there's really no way to answer. And then if a book does well, then maybe your next book, the company might pay you more. So it's really hard to say. Look, let me put it this way. I used to work at Microsoft, which is a big tech company, and they paid people a lot of money. If I'd really wanted to make a lot of money, I probably could have stayed at Microsoft. But I enjoy writing a lot more. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? Please submit your questions on the whiteboard from this point on. Thank you very much. All right. Here we go. Anyone has any questions? Okay. Here's one for you. What were you like in middle school?
I don't know. I think I was just sort of, middle of the road. I don't think I was particularly nerdy. I mean, I played basketball and baseball,
Okay.
Stuff like that. And I like to, I like to draw. Back then, like I was really into comic books and superheroes, and all that. And I had good friends and like to hang out and do fun things. I mean, I don't think I was particularly like Mr. Cool or whatever, but I don't think I was, like, you know, kind of out of it or something like that. I don't know how to put it really, right? Everyone's got their own way of being, and everyone's has their own beautiful path, and they have their own interests and everything, and that's fine. I just consider myself someone who liked to try to get along with everyone, whether they were real quiet and stuck to themselves or whether they were real outgoing. Everyone was okay as far as I was concerned.
Okay. And as a wordsmith, what are some of your favorite word games? Be they board games or online games?
I'm probably messing up the name of this one. Is it called Jumble or whatever? It's this one where you shake all the letters up and then they're inside this plastic thing, and then you try to make words of like 4 or more letters out of them, going any direction, go diagonally or parallel or whatever, and whoever came up with the most words, they get the top score. Do you guys know that game? I can't remember what it's
You
called.
guys know that game?
Boggle.
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 Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey!
Yeah, that's a fun
Nicely
one.
done.
I like Boggle, and I also like to do, they're called cryptic crossword puzzles. They're really hard to explain. They're
Okay.
more popular in England than they are in the United States. They're kind of like crossword puzzles, but the clues themselves are kind of word games. Each one of them is kind of a word game in and of itself. There's no way I could explain it here, but they're not just regular crossword puzzles. They're called cryptic crossword puzzles. And those are my favorite kind of word games. Yeah.
Okay. My favorite word game right now online is something called Ruzel. Have you heard of Ruzel?
No, there's so many of
Yeah.
these. I'll have to look it up.
So I don't know. So the way it works is that they give you like this cube of letters. So it's like there's 4 letters going across, and I think I have like 4 rows of those. And so the idea is to try to find as many words in this letter cube as you can by taking your finger and dragging it to the different letters.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen similar ones. I know what you mean.
Okay.
The other one I like in my newspaper every day, the Seattle Times, there's one's called the Jumble, and it gives you 2 5-letter words, and they're all jumbled up, and then 2 6-letter ones, and you have to it's like you have to do an anagram kind of, but the original thing is not a real word. It's just like a whole bunch of jumbled up letters, and it all can turn into one word. So I like doing that one every morning. That's kind of fun. Sometimes I look at them. You guys maybe do them as well. I look at them and it's like instantly they just come into my mind. Other times I have to really like study them and try to figure them out. So
Absolutely.
maybe I know it's 1 or it's 4 o'clock your time. So we may be out of time, but I'm happy to take one more question if we want.
Okay. Any last questions, guys? Any last ones? They're writing. They're writing. No question. Oh, I think they're trying to draw that thing you showed them earlier with the circle and the thing that I forget what it's called. The
mandala.
Yeah, mandala? I think that's what they're doing. I think they gave up on the questions.
Okay, that's okay. Those are a lot of fun to do.
I think you turned them on to something else.
Okay, if there are any questions or anything, I've got a website and you can write me through there. Okay.
Hey guys, he has a website, you guys, and you can submit any questions you have to him on his website. Okay, it's benguterson.com, I believe.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, benguterson.com. Listen, Mr. Guterson, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving us so much insight into your books, other books, your writing approach, your love of word puzzles like anagrams, word ladders, palindromes. It's been a lot of fun listening to you and learning from you. And we look forward to reading your new book, which comes out next month, The Shadow of the World Famous 9.
Wow.
So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys are great. Thanks for all your coordination and enthusiasm, Bashir. And those readers there are lucky to have you at the library. That's for sure.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind.
All right, you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
You too, Mr. Guterson. Take care.
Okay. See you.
Bye-bye.